Shall we get started? Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh,
Yeah,
lovely.
we can hear you. We can hear you.
Lovely, lovely. So, welcome aboard, everybody. And this is the first session that I'm taking with our support group. And I'm feeling a little stupid that I didn't think of it earlier. I was just busy being called to other places. So, a couple of questions that have been very, very commonly being asked to me, I'd like to address those. And after that, let's answer the questions that have come in by email from quite a few of you here. And after that, let's do a free session if anyone wants to share, discuss anything. So the first question, this is the most popular question that everybody asks me invariably. And that is, are we going to see a repeat of the property collapse of 2008? A lot of people are predicting that it's going to go that way. It seems to be a heated debate. Um, First of all, before we start, these are just my opinions. This is not professional financial advice. These are just my own views. Okay. So here's what I think about 2008. In 2008, the government was giving out mortgages, loans to people with virtually no down payment. There were people who were getting home loans at 0 and 1% down payment. And it was just being doled out at very low interest rates also. So when the property crash happened, the people who lived in those homes, the people who had taken those mortgages, they had very little to lose. So it was extremely easy for them to just walk away, give their keys and just walk away saying, sorry, I can't afford this. After that, however, things have changed quite a lot. And now we have many, many foolproofs in system, fail proofs in place. Like, for example, if you don't pay 20% minimum down payment for your mortgage, then you are default insured. Now, if you're default insured, then the bank is safe. The insurance is not for you as the buyer. The insurance you're paying for is that you're insuring the bank against you defaulting. So there's default insurance in place. If you don't do default insurance, then you pay 20% of the down payment, at least. Now, if you paid 20% of the down payment on your property, chances are you're not just going to hand over the keys and walk away. So, because of these reasons, I think that the house market is going to be a lot more stable compared to 2008. It's not going to go down that badly, but I do see a crash coming, but I see the crash coming in about maybe 9 months to a year from now. The reason I'm saying 9 months to a year is because most mortgage holders here have got deferrals, and these deferrals are up to 6 months. Now, by the time those 6 months get over, we don't know. Maybe the government might give another package and say, here's another 3 months, or they might just lower the interest rate. Anything can happen. So the people who are to crash, the people who are going to fail in their mortgages will take every single opportunity to try and save their homes because of their down payment already committed. And so the real crash I see coming would be in about a year when all these goodies get over. Then the people who've lost their jobs, the people who are stretched too much will really sell. Right now, what we are seeing as the dip is more or less the ones who were already on the edge, who said, okay, it's all going to go down to shit now. I might as well just get what I can. But that's just a small percentage. The real crash should be in about 9 months to a year from now. But I don't think it'll be as bad as 2008 at all. There is the question, the second question I've been asked is the second wave in fact a financial collapse? This is a very, very, very scary situation, and I hope and pray we all come out of it fine. But yeah, it looks like it is coming, because for almost 2 months the world has just stopped working. There are suppliers stuck with stocks who can't pay warehouse fees. There are employees who have jobs but don't have anything to work on. So this is going to collapse. And yeah, I do see the market going down. I don't think the market has crashed as yet. I believe it's being held up, and I don't know how or by whom. But um, when you look at Nasdaq, when you look at index funds, you find that it's not possible that there's no manufacturing, there's very little supplies, and it's only Netflix and Amazon doing well, and the market's still holding up. So it's, I think the real crash is going to come, and it's going to come soon. ETFs versus index funds is a question that keeps popping up. ETFs are electronically traded funds, and these you can buy directly on broker sites like Questrade. And index funds are those that are sold by banks. And when they are sold by banks, there is a difference. The banks charge you an MER, management expense ratio, whereas ETFs don't charge you anything. The difference, however, is that in both cases, there's no safety net. If you are following an index, you're following NASDAQ, you're following TSX, TNX, whatever. If you're in an index or an ETF, if you go down, you go really, really down. But having said that, if you look at the NASDAQ performance, NASDAQ index fund performance, it's never, ever run a loss. Never. You can just get on Google and do a NASDAQ fund history, and you'll find that it just hasn't run a loss. So yes, there's no safety net. Yes, it is extremely dangerous. But if you go by history, then yeah, a lot of good returns there. It's a call you got to take on your own. There are many, many people downloading Questrade and these trading apps, and they've started trading left, right, and center, and people have started running into crazy losses. I have this client, a gentleman from Russia who came in about, I think, 5, 6 months back, and he had $10,000, and he said, let's invest it. So I said, sure. And let's make a plan. Let's figure things out. Let me do some study and come back to you. And he came in probably 3 days later, and he said, guess what? I spent $8,000. I said, on what? And he had bought the stock of a company which was selling at $7, and it had dropped to $2. And he had spent 8,000 of his 10,000 buying that at $2. And then, unfortunately, and very, very sadly, just a little while later, the market further tanked, and that $2 went down to 10 cents. And after that, he had a really, really, really tough time coming up, trying to make his way back. And of course, he can do nothing but wait right now. So, what I'd like to, point out here is that it's, when we try to trade on our own, we are mostly going on gut instinct, and we are mostly going on tips from friends or news articles that we read occasionally.
Good morning, Commander Dev.
Guys, welcome all the
technical.
sorry for the interruption. Just continue where we were. So if
Vinod,
you're
I think
going
you'll
to
have to
trade on
ask
your
everyone
own-
to mute.
Sorry?
You'll have to ask everyone to mute their videos and audio, at least.
You're so right. Guys, please mute your audio, your phone or laptop. Okay, so coming back, we were talking about direct trading against going with advisor trading. Guys, please mute your phones. Thank you. Who's that on the waterfall? Wow.
Vince, my daughter is trying to get in. Jaya Mayadas, she's trying to get in.
Oh, there's nobody on waiting here. I've got quite a few
Oh, I
participants.
see.
Yeah, I've admitted anyone who is on waiting list.
Okay, I'll just tell her.
Yeah, right now there's nobody. So we were talking about trading on your own versus trading with professional advice. Here's my opinion. Those who are now trading on their own are normally trading either based on tips from friends or gut feel or newspaper articles and things like that. So before we just got interrupted, I was talking about this Russian client of mine who went and he literally trigger happy, jumped the gun, spent 8,000 out of his $10,000.
मैं आप कॉल कर लो
Guys, please mute your phones. Please mute your phones. Thank you. So he went and spent 8,000 out of his $10,000 picking up stocks which were trading at 7, but he bought them at $2. He was really thrilled with this purchase. And then what happened was it further dropped down. It went to 10 cents. Now he's in trouble. And today I have no idea where that company is or what they're doing. But things are looking really tough. If you are going to trade on your own, please, my advice is don't give in to these advertisements saying you can just become a millionaire overnight. Lots and lots and lots of people lose money in stocks, and they lose it for a reason. When you are looking to invest, please study the market, do practice dummy runs on apps, on free apps, do it for at least 5 to 6 months, or use a professional advisor to help you. Because when you're looking at a company, there are many things to look at. You have to look at what their business is, what their core business is, what are they really good at, who's the management, what is the man, if there's a new CEO, what is his style been, how is the company stringing out on liquidity, are they spending more than they can afford, are they acquiring too many things. So who's acquiring them, who's interested in buying them, is the spike in their shares unnatural. So you got to look at a lot of things. And after you look at that, then you need to look at it in context with larger pictures, like that company against or that company against a much bigger load of people. So then it starts making sense. Just looking at a newspaper article or some guy telling you that he's seen an article that I have this friend of mine here who went and bought into a company because somebody released a newspaper article that Nasdaq is interested in buying their vitamin. So he went and bought their shares because he believed that they know some technology that nobody else knows. And they're going to take care of longevity, and everyone's going to live a long time. Right now, we see similar things with pharma companies. Some of them are saying that they're looking at the vaccine coming up. But none of these are really concrete statements. It's a statement saying that we are looking forward to a vaccine coming. That leads to a spike in the shares. Recently, one of my best friends told me something fascinating. Spotify, the music company, went and signed a deal with Joe Rogan, who's my favorite go-to for news and podcasts. I listen to him all the time. So they signed on with Joe Rogan exclusively. Next day, Spotify's valuation jumped up by $100 million. $100 million. Now, of course, if you own the Spotify share before he signed and you sold after that, good for you. But if you really think about it, this is just perception. Somebody released an article, everyone got excited. How much of that article is true? How much of it is actually going to play out? We don't know. So it's all perception management. And if you're an investor, you really need to know the role of perception in investing. That's extremely important. Most common question I'm asked by investors in India who have a foot here in Canada or the US, very common question I get is, why should I be investing in Canada or US when you give single digit growth while I'm getting double digits? I'm getting 18, 20, 25% in India. This is a fantastic question. I've wrestled with this myself for a long time, and sometimes, I stopped wrestling a few years back, but sometimes it does come up. So here's the deal. Now, when you look at a Canada or a US, they are more or less grown economies. Okay, not developed, they're grown economies. There is a huge difference. when an economy grows, it grows like a human being. It grows proportionately. Like when we grow, we don't suddenly pop one arm. It doesn't suddenly become big, then your head becomes big. No, we grow proportionately. But when you say developing nation, then it's not growth, it's developing. So one part of that nation will grow. Suddenly you'll find Bangalore becoming an IT hub. Then you'll find that there is a Dalit crime going on somewhere else. So that's the difference between a developing and a growing nation. So when a nation's developing, it wrestles with a lot of issues like inflation. It wrestles with devaluing its own currency in order to stay relevant and stay competitive in the world market. Whereas a, a, an economy that's grown doesn't have to wrestle with these issues because it's a little older. It's already peaked in some areas. So when you invest in India, maybe you're getting your 15, 20, 25%. But when you look at the currency from outside, the currency is always being devalued. It needs to do that because that's how we stay competitive. And every country does that. So if you invested in X amount in India in year zero, by year 5, it will be much higher than what you would earn here. Because here you'll probably get 1 or 2%, maybe 2.5, 2.7 is what we offer in savings accounts if you block it for a year and take high interest rate. But if you look at the same things on a larger perspective, that is not just the numbers increasing, but you look at the currency valuation, you'll find that the Indian rupee would have gone down by that much in those 5 years. So invariably, you'll find that even though your percentages returns numbers are higher, the actual valuation is always lower. So if you ask me, if you live in India, definitely invest in India. That is the place to go because then you're not worried about the larger picture. Then your money is growing and you're doing well. But if you have a foot outside and you live abroad, then it makes no sense to invest there because it's like putting money in an iceberg that's melting. So while you get an illusion of growth, it's also constantly melting. It's weird because it makes sense while you're there. It doesn't make sense when you come out. But it's something worth thinking about. A question I've been asked again and again is, okay, we've done the mutual funds versus direct trading, ETFs, index funds. We've done property collapse of 2008, financial collapse. Let's look at next question is industries that are being really hit. Some industries have taken a punch in the gut, like the cruise liner industries. There were companies like Norwegian cruise liners that were selling at as high as $258 before this took place. It was healthy companies packed with business bookings right up to the next 8 months or so. They were doing well. And now cruise liners are the nightmare of the world. People have watched on TV as fancy cruise liners with 5,000 people have gone from port to port with COVID-infected patients, not been accepted anywhere. Hey guys, can you please mute your microphone? Can you please mute your microphone? Thank you. So yeah, cruise liner industries, things like luxury industries will take a hit for a while. Some airlines look like they're going to be nationalized. So that's something to think about. Some industries that have benefited would be anything to do with technology, data. So recently I was having a chat with this client of mine a couple of months back when COVID hit, and they were selling a software product made in India. They were selling it here. And we had this call, and the CEO was quite, oh, I see he's online in this call. So he was quite dismayed, and he said, what do? We have this fantastic team, but no one's going to buy our software now because it's not even required in this scenario. So we were wondering what to do and how do we get this moving. So the idea that I could suggest was that you're looking at selling your product, which is made by your team in India. We also need to realize that your team itself and their skills are also a product. And if you repurpose that skill set, then you have a new product to sell. So instead of just selling that software product that you made, you also can sell that skill. You say, I have this team of brilliant guys who can do XYZ. They're so good. Tell me what you want and we'll make it for you. So a lot of repurposing has happened. It seems to have worked for some companies. I mean, they're doing very well. And I can see you grinning year to year. Sorry. And so yeah, just repurpose, look at things. And I would very, very strongly suggest to every single person present here to please take a strong relook at your investment portfolio. Wherever you are, whatever you invested in, that was pre-coronavirus. If you have investments lying in industries which you know are going to flag in the long run, it may make sense to revisit that. If you have too much in equity and you are, let's say, like me, over 50, then you need to look at how much of your career is left. If you plan and to work and earn a lot more, then leave it. But if you are taking it easy, you've got one foot in retirement, then get out of the equities and start changing your asset allocation towards fixed income. It'll give you quite a benefit. So please do look at your own asset allocation, look at your investments, and do work with some. I'd say talk to at least one or two different financial advisors, see what they have to say, and take their opinions. You don't have to do what they say. At least you'll get some inputs. And uh, yeah, I guess this takes care of the questions that we had in the list I had emailed to you. I have some more questions that have come from our participants here. So I'm going to get to those. After I do those, if you have any live questions, we can answer them online after that, okay? So I'm just looking through questions. All right, the question from Colonel Grewal is it advisable to invest in farming business, especially green poly house as part of BC PNP Entrepreneur Immigration Regional Pilot Program? Colonel Saab, this would best be answered by an immigration consultant. But I can tell you that there are plus and minus sides to everything. When you take a PNP program, it means you are committed to that province. So your mobility is limited. But in your case, you're talking about farming. So I'm sure a farmer doesn't have to be concerned with mobility. And if I also see BC, in terms of weather, BC is the best place that I know of in Canada if I had to choose. So if you're going to farm in a place with good weather, that's a great idea. A good thing to do.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, it's a very, very good idea. And you must remember that in Canada, it is an expensive country, and yes, you don't just come in with high salaries. People don't have money to throw around the way we do in India. People are much more contained and limited here. The concept of living is different. Your richness or wealth is not defined by the size of your home or which belt you're wearing or which car you're driving. Here it's more like the quality of your life. It's more like how many treks do you get to go on, what seawall runs do you do, and are you people are crazy about things like veganism. So it's more like enrichment of lifestyle than acquiring of products. So if you're looking at moving here, I promise you that it doesn't matter what you're earning, you can have a phenomenally rich life, but that richness would be in terms of quality, in terms of health, in terms of food that you eat. in terms of conversation that you have, in terms of freedom of expression, in terms of not being limited by certain fears of regionalism or of religious persecution, things like that. But if you're looking at, driving a BMW and, X7 or something like that, you'd probably need to come on a lateral transfer, or you'd need to be a businessman or an investor who's already made his money and come here. Another question that's come from Mr. Sinha is, what are interest rates of different financial instruments in Canada? Sir, these interest rates keep changing. They change on whims and fancies of the banks. So the best way you can get updated financial instrument rates is to go to bank websites and look at them. You can visit RBC, Scotiabank, TD. There are many banks here. They're known as the Big Five. They're all excellent places. They give good stuff. But please don't compare the interest rates here to the interest rates in India, because it works both ways. If you get that much less interest, you can also borrow at that much less interest. So when you go for a mortgage, for example, right now there people getting mortgages at 2%, 2.5%. Somebody recently got one at 1.95%. So it works both ways, and they're just two different realities. What is the status of equity market right now? This is just an opinion. It's completely my personal opinion, but I think that we are about to see a big tumble in the world markets. I don't believe that they had collapsed till now. I think they were propped up, but now that people are getting back to work, life, at least here, is back to normal. I think people have now come back to office. They've realized how many orders have not come through, how many vendors have failed, how many clients are not paying anymore and cannot pay in the near future. So because of these things, the joblessness is going to start. Some people will be let off. The luxury expenses that were made pre-COVID, like fancy cars and boats and yachts, they're going to start being returned. Some of the luxury homes will be returned soon. So yeah, I think we're going to see quite a crash coming up. And for anyone who is already invested pre-COVID and did not sell through COVID, what is the advice? My advice is just stay put. Stay put. History has shown that invariably, whenever there's been a fall, there's always been a rise after that. Stay put. If you haven't sold, then don't sell. Just sit through it, and it'll recover soon. And this time, at least we know it's not, that some economy has failed or it's a scam or something. It's the whole world is in it. So you're a lot better off. And investment tips from me are, if you're doing mutual funds, then talk to your bank advisor. But don't let, I mean, if somebody just says, oh, you want investment tips, buy this, that really doesn't make sense. If somebody has to advise you, they have to know who you are, what your timelines are, what your objectives are, what your risk appetite is. So till they don't know all these things, how can they advise you? So for me to sit and just tell you buy this and that makes no sense. That means actually what I'm doing is I'm saying that if you gave me your money to buy what I want for myself, then I would buy these because it suits me. So if anyone's doling out that kind of advice, then pull back. First, find out why you're investing. What is your objective? What are your timelines? Are you thinking in months, days, years, and why? Maybe you need to tweak that. You never know. And what is your risk appetite? When do you freak out? Do you freak out at a 10% fluctuation? Do you freak out at 15? Do you freak out when it's 20%? Or are you completely indifferent even at 50%? We don't know. So you need to know all that before somebody can start giving you advice. Um, strategic financial planning tips for the next 5 years. Okay, sir, I would really, really need to know your all the info I just spoke about before I can give strategic tips to you, because my strategic planning would be different from the person next to me as individuals. How does one manage expenses in Canada? As we just spoke about the lifestyle and the quality of life, it doesn't matter. I think almost everyone leads a good life. You may not earn the way you earned in India. You may not have the servants and the um, chauffeur-driven car to pick you up and drop you. But whether you work in a Starbucks or you work in a bank or you just do anything, you're a salesman in a used car lot, you still have a pretty decent life. And you still shop in the same places as Justin Bieber. That's a good thing. And good investment property in Canada. Okay, so guys, this has been coming up in several of the conferences. Many of our members want to jump in and buy properties in Canada. No, buying property in Canada will not give you your PR. That's separate. You cannot invest 100,000 and buy a property and buy your permanent residence. Please consult an immigration lawyer. For properties in terms of profits, if I can, since I live in Vancouver downtown, I can tell you about Vancouver. Buying a property for business here is not really profitable because properties are extremely expensive, taxes are through the roof, and the returns are quite limited. If you are going to buy a property, it would make sense to buy a property which you want to live in, because then it doesn't matter how much it costs or what you're paying, because that's your home. And then it doesn't matter if it's going up or down. If you're looking from an investment point of view, it is quite tough. It's very tough. And also, there are a lot of taxes and there are a lot of limitations put on non-resident investors. There's speculation tax, there's blue tax, blah tax, I don't know. So please do look into those things. They play quite an important role. What is asset allocation? I think we discussed that with another question previously. Inventory, when and what should I buy? Please talk to at least 2 financial advisors wherever you are. Don't just invest on your own, on gut feel and newspaper articles or tips from friends. Please research your companies, go into their plans, their orders, their liquidity, who the team is, what is that team's mentality. Is it a hire and fire CEO, or does that CEO have a history of stringing out the company's liquidity? Be careful of these things. They're very important. Yeah, I think the why should I invest in Canada? That's already done. Which industries have benefited from the pandemic? I'm sure Netflix and Amazon are extremely happy right now. So, okay, guys, that does it with the questions I had to answer. It's an open forum. If you have a question, then please unmute your mic and ask the question. And I'm happy to try and answer. And I don't know if there'll be chaos, but let's try it.
Hi, Vinod. What do you think about gold and gold mining companies?
In which part of the world, sir?
Oh, I'm talking about gold and gold mining company in Canada.
Okay, all right. Honestly, I don't have knowledge of gold and gold mining companies in Canada, so I can't talk about that. But gold as an investment is always a go-to investment. It's a huge go-to because when you look at World War I, when refugees ran across the world, they took gold. You look at World War II, when any community that was being persecuted was fleeing across Europe, it was gold that they carried. Today, when someone runs across as a refugee into Europe, it's gold that they carry. Gold is the go-to. It is the currency that is actually the basis of all other world currencies. So you generally can't go too wrong if you're buying gold. But I don't know if that can hold true for digital gold. I don't know if digital gold can have the value of real gold. They say it does, but I don't know how that works. Does that answer your question?
Hi,
Thank you.
Vinod.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, Jaya.
Hi, Vinod. Could you just tell us what would you think is a better portal, West Simple or Questrade if I want to get into online trading? And if this is my first time, then what would be better? Because I think one of them don't have a minimum balance that you have to maintain in the account. One does. So what would be your take? Which would be a better one if I'm just entering into this?
Okay, I would suggest that you please don't enter like that on your own if you're just entering into it. Because as I just in the
Okay.
beginning of the talk, I'd mentioned that people tend to invest on tips or on good vibes or on newspaper articles. You need to do a lot more solid research on companies before you put your money in. As far as whether it's Questrade or
Mm-hmm.
any other, you see your comfort level with the panel in front of you. Okay. Now, there is a lot of information that's accessible to you on your screens, whether you're using an HDFC app or a Questrade or Scotia iTrade or anything. There's a lot of information. The question is, which layout suits your personality? Because there are some
Okay.
bits of information that are readily streaming and visible to you, and some that you need
Mm-hmm.
to click on and mine. You need to do, you need to do some mining before you get to that info. So in every app, that is laid out differently. You see the one that suits your personality. Don't worry too much about the minimum, because there's no one who's going to say start at $1 million, and if they are, then you're probably not going to use that app today, right? So don't worry about that. You worry about what is smoother, easier, more comfortable for you. It shouldn't be that you buy a stock
Okay.
and after buying you say, oh crap, I did not see this piece of information. It was on the screen, it was available, but it wasn't my go-to. I didn't see it. I wish I could have seen it before. Does that help, Jaya?
Mm-hmm.
I think we've lost contact. Anyone else with any other questions?
House away from the city, or again, do we have to look at it whether what's our requirement into it?
I'm sorry. Can you please repeat that? I lost connectivity.
I wanted to just know, when we are looking at buying a house without the intention of trading it further and just looking at it as a place we want to stay in, and when we are seeing whether to buy a townhouse or a condo with the condo fee, what would you think are the key parameters to keep in mind for that?
See what locations you like, what kind of people you like to live with. There are some people who like to stay in a community that they feel comfortable with. So I have
Okay.
friends who would like to be in a place where people from their country are. I have some friends who would like
Okay.
to be in a place where their type of people are, whether it could be artists and intellectuals who like to hang
Mm-hmm.
out on Salt Spring Islands, or LGBT that would prefer West End, or Indians, or not Indians, sorry, I take that back, Punjabis who would like to be in a Surrey. So you see your comfort level.
Mm-hmm.
There's no right and wrong. It's whatever you like. And then you really should
Okay.
study structure of the property. So when you're buying a property,
Okay. Okay.
go into the strata minutes of their books, and you'll get to know whether there's a huge expense coming, what is allowed, what is not allowed.
Okay.
Most Indians like to keep an option of Airbnb when they purchase a home, because if they're not
Okay.
buying a
Okay.
home,
Okay.
they like to give it out on Airbnb, make some money, right? Now, most stratas don't allow Airbnb. And then if some strata says they do allow it, then sometimes they have clauses which say that you cannot do short-term rentals. You can't do 1 day, 2 days. You have to do minimum 1 year,
Okay.
2 years. Some strata say we have no such
Mm-hmm.
restriction. You can do Airbnb throughout the year, but we allow only 2 apartments in the building to give it out. And you find that those 2 were taken
Okay.
years back. So you really need a realtor who is like an investigator for you, because for a layman,
Okay.
you and me, we'll have our limitations in finding out this kind of info, but a realtor and a good lawyer together,
Mm-hmm.
that's what you need. And
Okay.
I would suggest
Okay.
that don't just go and pre-qualify in the bank, because first thing you do is first get an idea of how much down payment you have,
Okay.
what your income expense is, and just take a kind
Mm-hmm.
of sense of what budget you're willing to look at. So supposing you
Mm-hmm.
arrive at, you say, okay, I think I'm good for a property at about 800,000 max. We don't know if that's an
Mm-hmm.
accurate figure, but it's fair enough, having discussed with your financial advisor or friends of yours. Just come to a ballpark and start fishing around. Drive through a few
Okay.
locations, visit a few places, walk into a couple of open houses, respond to a few ads,
Mm-hmm.
then finalize your realtor.
Okay.
And when you're really serious, you say, okay, I've got my ducks in a row. I'm really ready to jump in. Then you go to your bank or your financial institution
Okay.
and you say, guys, I'm all set. Please, let's pre-qualify me and find the property. But it's always
Okay.
better to first have the property,
Okay.
because
Okay.
uh,
Thank you. That's really helpful. Yeah.
pre-qualifying is only about you. It's not about the property, and a
Mm-hmm.
mortgage is as much about you as it is about the property.
Mm-hmm.
I feel it's better to qualify with the property in hand.
Okay. Okay.
Hi, Vinod. This is
Hi.
May again. As you said, the gold in paper form is not reliable. Like if it is an ETF, like Standard and Poor's ETF, which has got a ticker called as GLD, those also like are like not much reliable as the gold in physical form.
Sir, I'm sorry, I probably didn't come across clearly. What I said is that I know that gold is the world currency on which all currencies are based, but I'm not sure how close to that real current digital gold is. So I really don't know. I don't want to make a statement that it's unstable or stable. I know it's doing very well, but I don't know how.
Okay.
I mean, how? Because why is gold so valuable? Because gold is so valuable because of aesthetics, and gold is so valuable because it is the basic currency on which other currencies are based. If nothing else works, you pop out a gold coin and anybody takes it anywhere in the world. If I go and give $1 to somebody from another country, it may make no sense to them, right? So I wonder what value digital currency has, and I don't know how it works, sir. So I'm really not saying don't buy it. I'm just saying I'm not competent to speak about it.
Great. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you.
Do you see any trend in commodities, or each commodity has its own path to take?
Sir, commodities is a very, very complicated area. It requires high IQs, which I just do not have. So I don't know anything enough. But I mean, I have working knowledge. I can get into a conversation with you, but I don't have advice level knowledge. I can't say anything about it.
That's okay. No problem. Thank you. That's fine.
Thank you. Anything else from anyone else?
Sir, I will ask. Hello.
Yeah.
Sir, I will. So my question is, everybody now is talking about the Bitcoin, digital currency,
Yeah.
Bitcoin, XRP, etc. What are your views about that, sir?
I've never ever invested in Bitcoin myself. And this is something I've been hit with again and again by fellow investors, clients, everyone. But somehow I've stayed away from it. I'm still staying away from it. My rationale is personal, it's not advice. My opinion is that I don't see any government permitting an alternative currency which can go out of control or unaccounted. That just doesn't make sense to me. See, see, why are all governments so pro digital currency? It's because that way every transaction anywhere in the world will be tracked. Whether you swipe your credit card or you ding ding at a toll, everything is tracked, right? The benefit of digital currency is that the government knows everything that's going on. For people who like freedom and don't like being watched, they hate that. For people who believe that there is order required and we should not have parallel economies, they support having digital currencies. But when you have an alternate digital currency, that is a cryptic currency, then you are saying that we have a currency which is a complete black market. It is unaccounted. Right. So I really cannot understand any government saying, yeah, go ahead, let's have an alternate currency and you guys can trade and make billions and we won't benefit from it. I just can't see that. Facebook launched Libra with so much fanfare. And then Mark Zuckerberg himself had to swallow those words and say, okay, we are shutting down. Facebook has probably got more political clout than all political organizations in the world. It can even influence elections across the world, today. And it had to pull back on currency. So I don't see governments really playing in unless the government becomes a partner in the currency. But the government already has that in our tap and Apple Pay and things. So why would they allow any other cryptocurrency to come up? And why is it that every crypto guy who tries to lure you in tells you that this is it, we are great, we are poised, and you just see 2 years from now where we are going to be? For the past 10 years, I've been hearing this 2-year projection that in 2 years we are taking over. Now you just see it's our time. Okay. But these are my opinions. I could be, I'm fairly well known to be wrong very often.
No, just a comment, Vinod. I understand that some countries were indeed planning their very own cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
But I don't know what's holding them back, Over.
Sir, a cryptocurrency is a digital currency. So actually we are already in digital currency. I mean, I don't carry cash. I've had a $20 note in my wallet for I don't know how many months. Wherever we go, we just tap. If you notice, I don't even have a credit card or anything. We just tap. So that is digital currency. It is cryptocurrency, but it's the government's cryptocurrency. Whereas when you say Bitcoin or you say something else, then you're saying it's an alternate currency which nobody will have control over except the guys who own it. So if so-and-so company says, let's say there is XYZ makeup company, and the makeup company says, we have our own cryptocurrency. So what are we saying? We are saying that this is a currency for you, and we, the makeup company, is going to own this currency. We are your bank and we are your government. No one's going to allow that. No, I don't see any government in their right senses saying, go ahead, run a parallel economy.
Agreed. Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions from anyone else?
Yeah, so I have a question. This is Amit.
Hi, Amit.
Yeah, so this is specific to a particular sector. In view of the current pandemic, how do you see the tourism and hospitality industry in Canada in the next couple of years? Could you just give us a background on the outlook?
The place where I lived till March, I was in a place called Waterfront, and which was right next to a very, very touristy place called Canada Place. So every day from my home, I would see these massive tourist liner luxury boats, like 5,000 rooms, 7,000 rooms, luxury rooms, coming and docking and going by evening. And the place where I would live, that's Gastown, is such a touristy place that locals would get irritated at tourists who would always be blocking the road, taking photographs of everything. Okay, and that was a lifestyle. That was the economy of that place. Today we don't see those luxury boats. We don't, and I'm sure that these luxury liners will take a hit for quite a while. The sheer terror of being stuck on a boat in the middle of the ocean, breathing air conditioned, controlled air with coronavirus inside, especially considering that more than 60% of the clientele is above the age of 65. It's terrifying. So I see a hit over there for at least 2-3 years, luxury liners. But things like airlines, I would say that airlines are a necessary mode of transport. It's not a luxury. Airlines are necessary. So that will come right back up, whether the government bails out each airline or the airline makes it on its own. Airlines are necessary, especially things like cargo. Hotels, if you look at basic government hotels, I think that not government, sorry, reasonably priced hotels, I'm certain that they'll do very well again because people will eventually travel. And it, right now we may avoid it for a while, but I think it'll come back as a fashion that, oh, I met somebody in person. How was it? So yeah, travel in hotels. But I do think things like Airbnb would take a hit because there will be new hygiene regulations which a controlled industry like a hotel industry can ensure, but an Airbnb person will not be able to ensure those kind of hygiene habits. So maybe that may turn into a slightly underground industry, while the more luxury things, for example, if you say private jets, I know that there is most private jets are already pre-booked for travel for as soon as when the air opens up, because anyone who can afford it is desperate to get out. So luxury part, I think that'll still continue, but that's a tiny, tiny niche market. It's not for everyone. Bulk tourism industry is definitely going to take a solid hit for at least a year and a half. A year and a half, maybe 2 years from now, it'll find its way back. Does that answer?
No, thank you. Yeah, sure, absolutely. Thank you, sir.
Vinod, do you think that people will opt for co-working spaces near their houses if their offices are far off? Over.
Yeah, so I think that honestly, I see the way forward as again, I'm just sharing my opinions. They can be completely wrong, but I think technology is the sunrise sector. When I was 20 and coming in, technology was looked at as an industry. IT was looked at as an industry. Today, I don't think technology is an industry on its own. I don't think IT is an industry because it's part of everything. If you're manufacturing a glass bottle like this, there's some technology involved. There's some computers involved in that. Even your phone is so high tech; it's got supercomputers inside. There's no aspect of life, whether it's medicine, stationery, anything. It's all got technology. So even with this COVID, if there's one thing we've learned that technology can save us in situations like this. So I'd say technology is what's going to really be popular. So if you have technologies that permit you to work from home, then you would choose that over a shared space. Coming to your question. So anyone who has a choice of being able to work from home or from a nice place would rather do that over a shared space. And those who don't have that luxury or need something like maybe you need a printer, you need some other things, you'd probably go to the nearest shared space. And offices, yeah, I guess they might change. I mean, I've seen banking change in the last 60 days. Before coronavirus hit, the standard line we had was, come to the bank, let's talk. And anything on the phone was, yeah, come, let's meet. Now in the last 60 days is, don't come, you can do this from home. And your app has been upgraded, you don't need to come. So even when someone would come and stand in line, my first question would be like, why? Is this something we can do from home? And if the answer is yes, then please do it from home, right? So we don't know where things are going to go. I mean, uh, uh, there are many banks across the world who are changing to no people bank, and they're changing to small kiosks where you can just go in, get whatever you want done and leave. And there may be one receptionist or one kiosk only for taking a report of complaints or issues that people have. And then they'll get back to you. They'll probably just call you back. Yeah, a lot is going to change, and uh, let's see. It should be interesting. It's a very interesting time we are all in.
Thanks.
Any other questions, anyone? Okay, if we have no questions,
Yes,
guys.
so hello.
Yes, please.
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
So this is Abhishek here, Abhishek Patrick here.
Hey, Abhishek, how are you?
Good evening, sir. I'm good, sir. It's it's so enriching to listen to you and all the knowledge that you're providing to us.
My pleasure, buddy. We've been at this for what, nearly 15 years now? You and I?
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Approx 15 years since 2008.
Yeah.
So my question is, I put this in the chat also. So what do you think about the school and college education, especially now and in future, as the online teaching is not very much adaptive by the students, especially by the school students? College students may adapt themselves to the online teaching, but I'm not sure about the school students till class 12, because there's a big difference in the college in the online teaching and the classroom teaching. This problem is faced across India, and I'm sure that this problem is faced in other countries as well.
Are we saying
Because
that?
I'm in
Sorry, please go ahead.
yeah, because I'm in touch with other educators also across India, so they are also facing the same problem, especially with the school students.
Okay. Okay. So my question to you, Abhishek, is that problem because the kids don't get technology, or is it because we are unable to provide technology good enough for them to learn with?
We may provide, I mean, there are schools which are very much technically sound, but even they are facing problem in online and teaching online to the students. So students are not very much getting adapted to the online teaching.
Oh, oh my God. I haven't heard of this issue at all. I mean, I'm sorry, it's completely new to me. It's fascinating. I think even I'm going to look this up. I wonder why, because I thought the younger you are, the easier it is to learn and adapt. Like it's when you become sick after a certain age that I don't know. This is fascinating to me.
So
So, Vince, can I just add?
Sure, Stan.
Okay, Vince, my daughter is 4-year-old and she already has Zoom calls with her friends back in Montreal, though we are in Kitchener now in Ontario. So just wanted to put in that technology is not a hassle for the kids here, I believe. My friend's son, who is now in his grade 1, he gets on a weekly basis some. So it's more of not teaching the kids on the approach here. What I have seen in Kitchener is that it's not of teaching the kids on a screen. It's more of giving the parents to do the homeschooling for the kids here. So that's how it is working. And on a weekly basis, then you send back all the work that has been done throughout the week to the teachers. They assess, they give their observations on it, and then on the next week you again work on it. That's how it works. My daughter being like kindergarten age now, it's not very difficult for her, but these are the only two grades that I can speak about right now because I just see it in front of my eyes. So like Vinsar said, it's like it might be different in different places. So I thought of just sharing that, Abhishek.
So, Abhishek, what I was thinking, Abhishek, is that
Yes,
what
sir.
occurred to me, maybe it's a technology that we are able to provide to the kids, whether maybe it's connectivity is so poor that that the kids don't hold their attention, or maybe the technology, the hardware is not good enough, or I wonder, but let's look into it. And if you like, Abhishek, I have a couple of friends here who are pretty frontline on the education front here. So I can connect you to some people at UBC, and maybe you can have conversations, because what you're doing and your connection with the Bihar Yoga University, the oldest in the world, sure, you guys, they learn
Yes,
from
sir.
you, learn from them, because I mean, your stature in India is pretty big. So it's something we really should wonder. I mean, our kids must get the best, you know.
Vinod sir, if
When
I
sir,
may add on to this. Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, hi. So I also have an 8 years old daughter. So I guess the issue which Abhishek was bringing up, it's not more of a technology issue. It's basically because it's difficult for these age students to be disciplined to sit and grasp what's going there online. Because most of the times
Very
we
true.
all are habitual of looking at printed material and then sort of practicing from there and those kind of things. So making us so in a school environment, basically students have company of fellow classmates, and then there's a controlled environment and all, I think, which is kind of not happening at home. So that is, I think, more of a problem rather than the technology. So students here in India are still not able to adapt to this change, that now going forward, maybe at least for a year or so,
Yeah.
things would be like this, that they have to just look at the teacher from the screen and then grasp it. They're just taking it still as a fun activity rather than as a serious activity.
Yeah.
yeah, when sir, I would just interject on both the perspectives. Gurpreet here. I know we are on the top of the hour, but I'll just take 2 minutes. So I have seen both the personal front where my daughter is taking these online classes. Obviously, whatever points have been discussed, they are true. It's not that technology is not there. Technology is there, but it's difficult, to make these kids discipline, and definitely effectiveness of the teacher takes a toll. But even in the professional front, what I have personally observed is where my trainers in a professional environment were able to manage a batch of 2025 in this online era, which has started like 2 months 3 months back, since the time India is in lockdown.
Yeah.
So that count has come down, that effectiveness has gone down. So both I mean, the employees as well as the trainers, they are complaining that it's not so easy to get the same feel of training which they would get in a classroom session, versus especially if you are viewing everything on a mobile phone. So you
Right.
need to have at least a bigger screen where you can have better interaction, etc. So I think it will take some time for us to evolve.
Okay. I guess that's good.
Very correct.
Yeah. 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 So Abhishek, I'd like to, in fact, I wanted to take a conversation with you on this yoga thing. We'll go offline, because I'm working on something very, very interesting right now. I think it'll blow your mind.
Okay, sir.
I'll chat with you.
Okay, sir.
Okay, guys, any other questions from anybody?
Yeah, I would like to ask you something, Vinod.
Yes, you can.
Beside being a financial advisor, you're also into numerology. Correct me if I'm wrong. And also into astrology. So what does your reading talk about this corona? See, I'm going through hundreds of YouTube videos and trying to, find out when is this going to end, when the vaccine is going to come, and numerous prediction. So I thought you are the right person, if I can ask you that.
Oh my God. Honestly, this wouldn't be the right place for that conversation. But the numerology I do is not into that kind of prediction at all. It's completely
Okay.
personalized. You see, what I do and what I really, you're right, I have several verticals. I am banker and investor. Finance is something I love. I love money, to be honest with you. And my other passion, where I know people like Abhishek and others, which I've been doing for 30 years now, coaching, guiding, grooming people to be their best. Um, so that's one of, and in that, there are many tools I use. And some of the tools are Western. I use NLP, I use transactional analysis, MBTI, many tools, right, which we are all familiar with. But I also believe in and very strongly use Eastern tools, meditation, deep breathing, okay, tantras, mantras. Now I know that there is a lot of misconception. The minute you say tantra, everybody imagines having sex in upside down positions, which I don't even know the connection how it comes up, but that those are myths that people have. So for me, they use tools to help in getting people to where they want in the best way possible. So I can't really get into prediction on coronavirus, what's going to happen. So if you ask me personally, I think that we are going to learn to live with it. And I think at some point, most of us are already infected. And I think, if you're still around and you're healthy, it means you probably been infected and didn't know it. Because look at the way it spread. I mean, it's gone across the world, it's gone everywhere, so fast, so fast. But that's just my personal guesswork. It's not numerology. But we can have
Thank you. Thank you so much.
it
Thank you.
anytime.
Vinodji, I have a question, if you may ask.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, like you, I'm also a banker, and I've been typically into NRI services in India.
Oh.
So, yeah. So I just want to just understand a perspective from somebody who's there in Canada. How are NRIs now looking at India? Are they planning to move more money into India and invest here, or are they, because comparatively you are right that rate of interest in Canada are much lesser in banks as compared to what we get in India, even in if I talk about the dollar deposits, the Canadian deposits. So what's the general feeling or general perspective of people's NRIs specifically abroad?
Okay, so I've seen a huge pivot. I've seen people really changing in the past 3 to 4 months. Before this, I had friends of mine calling and saying, like, what the heck? Why would you run off to Canada? Why? What's wrong with you? You have such a good life here. You've just chucked it and gone. Like, what a dumbass. Okay. When it would come to investments, the same thing. Like, why would I invest with you when you're giving me maybe 6%, 5%, and I could be getting much higher, 25, 26%, 18% in India? And when I would talk about the devaluing of currency, or I would say that, okay, you've got 20%, you and I invest X amount, one here and one in India. At the same time, you look back after 5 years, you'll find the guy in India has grown by 20-25%. The guy in Canada has probably grown by 5 or 6%. Absolutely true. The guy in India has made more money. The guy in Canada has made less money. But now you pull out to a larger level and you view it not just from the numbers which are clinical, you view it from the currency point of view, and you'll find that they've more than compensated, because India has to devalue its currency to stay competitive. If the rupee keeps getting stronger, exports go into losses. So we keep devaluing, right? So that was a debate. And I would always say, why would I live on a shrinking iceberg? I would rather be on solid ground. And that was, some of my friends and clients invested here with me, some didn't. There was hesitation. Now, however, in the last 90 days, the views have changed. We are seeing videos of USA falling apart. Trump trying to kill people, people trying to kill Trump. It's like a circus. I mean, no offense to anyone, but it's really, I mean, it's a freak show when you watch US politics. Then you get WhatsApp videos of people chasing each other with sticks and throwing burning bottles in India. Then you see other countries where there's riots going on. Then you see people being trained as suicide bombers, infecting themselves and going into the public. And then you switch channels and you see what's going on in Canada. And here, the most popular WhatsApp clip that's been circulating is one where Justin Trudeau came out in public with his hair flying across his face, a windy face, and then he pulled his hair back like that. And everybody played it. I mean, I'm sure you've all seen it, DDLJ music, Karan Johar music, and Justin Trudeau doing this, right? Then we see that he's doling out $2,000 a month. Then provincially, you're getting another $1,000. People are being told you don't have to pay rent. It's okay. Mortgages are being deferred by 6 months. There's no pressure to go to work. Like I've been working throughout the coronavirus, but the bank is very clear. You don't want to work, don't work. If you feel even slightly that you're not well, you even suspect that you're unwell, don't work. So now a lot of people who are looking at their mobile phones are getting messages from everywhere in the world, whether it's Chinese messages of people being dragged out and sprayed with disinfectant, or the Indian riots, or anything. Naturally, people are saying, holy cow, you're in such a peaceful place. And then some of my friends see my Instagram posts of my evening walks and fishing, and they say, oh my God, how can you be doing that? So now suddenly, coming back to your question, a lot of people are saying, okay, tell me about that devaluation thing we spoke about 6 months back. I want to understand it now. I didn't understand it earlier. And now people are like, you look at our own 4G support group, I'm getting so many messages now saying, is there no way I can buy a PR by buying property there? So yes, there is a massive shift and people are looking at the change. I believe that this new need to migrate or to move to a safer place will be very high right now. 6 months from now, we'll all become comfortable where we are. So we'll again forget about it. But right now, yeah, everyone wants to come out of to a better place.
Thank you so much, sir.
Sure. I'm assuming there are no more questions now. If there's nothing else, guys, it's been such a fun morning here. It's nice and rainy. Let me show you from where I am. This is my home, and what you see behind me is downtown West End and the mountains. You can't see the mountains because it's raining heavily outside.
Why it's raining suddenly? I think now it's summer. The weather must have changed.
I live in Vancouver. It's always
My daughter lives there. You know, my daughter lives there too.
Your daughter is my client.
Yeah. That's one more question I wanted to ask you, that for fresh graduate who have just started working,
yeah,
and you know they don't earn much,
yeah,
where they want to save and they want to invest, what would you advise them to do? What is the best thing for them to do? Because currently my daughter is going through, you know, tons of things she wants to do.
yeah.
As far as investments are concerned, she wants to buy a property there, which we told her not to because it's too early.
Excellent.
So what advice would you like to give?
Firstly, if you're planning to buy a property, 9 months to 10 months from now would be a good time. I'm certain that a lot of properties values will crash by then. So that would be a very good time. I know your daughter, of course, and I would say that if she or anyone like her wants to start investing, see, the thing is nowadays people get bombarded with information from a million places. And when you live in a place like Vancouver, of course, you know, Suparna, every person is an immigrant, or at least,
Yeah.
yeah, it's probably, we call a local Vancouverite more like a unicorn, somebody you just imagine, right? That also means that there's a lot of conflicting opinions and cultures and thoughts. Now, if you talk to a local Vancouver person or a local Canadian or a local American, banks are banks. You just go, you put their money, they give you advice, they tell you what to do. Sometimes they behave like assholes, they're greedy people, but yeah, they're banks. But that's not really the opinion all over the world. There are people in other countries who think that banks are, whose experience is that banks are organized thuggery, where banks are owned by political bodies and by mafia agencies, and they come and they pick you up and they drag you out and take your money. So now, when a person comes from a country like that, then anything that you talk about in a bank is viewed suspiciously, right? So what happens when you live in Vancouver is you get opinions from everywhere, and then it becomes very confusing on what is right and wrong because you're not from here, right?
True.
My advice would be, initially, since when you're young and you're just starting out, 3 to 5 years, go with your bankers, listen to them. They might sell you a product that they are supposed to sell from the bank. Of course, that's their job. You can't go to a Coca-Cola shop and ask for a Pepsi. You can't go to an Apple store and expect them to sell Microsoft. So of course they'll sell you the bank products, but they're not going to stab you or take away your property or destroy your money, because obviously you won't bank with them after that. That's common sense. They will take care of you, right? They'll take their cut. Of course, every bank does that, but they will take care of you, and they're organized institutions that are accountable. The financial advisors who sit there, myself included, are trained and licensed. You can't do something irresponsible. Like, I can't sell something to a client if that doesn't suit their profile. The software will allow it. If somebody is 21 years old and their profile is X, and I try to sell them something which is meant for somebody, the system itself won't allow it. So there's a lot of safety. Okay. So when you go to a bank and you take advice from there, they won't give you that trajectory growth. They'll give you this kind of growth, stable and going up. When you go to a private guy, he might send you this way. I'll give you a fantastic thing that happened. Was pre-coronavirus. I had clients who would come and fight, literally fight. I mean, not uglily, but in typical Canadian way, very polite and very nicely. They would say, "Why would I invest with you when I can just buy an ETF, or I'll just take an index fund, or why do I need to pay so much MER, management expense ratio? Why am I paying that when uh, I'll give you an example. Somebody spoke about NASDAQ index fund.
Okay.
One of my own favorite funds. Never run a loss, always gone up, 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 up. And then you look at a normal portfolio balanced fund, and you find that it's grown at 5% and it's stable. And in 2008, it had a -5. In 2011, it again did a -1. So who's going to do this? I mean, common sense tells you that you go for the index fund that has never run a loss, which is running high profits, scored as high as 43% once on one of. It's a no-brainer, right? But no,
Yeah.
it's not a no-brainer, because the MER is being charged because there's somebody actively managing your portfolio. So when you buy, let's say you go through 20 funds and you finally choose one which has an asset allocation and tells you that it tells you that 50% fixed, 40% equities, 20% foreign funds, and 12% global funds, just for example. Okay. Now, 6 months into that fund, your fixed income has not given you great returns because it's not supposed to. It's a fixed income. But your equities have given you great returns because they're equities. Now, because they've given you great returns, their proportion in that pie chart has increased. But because income doesn't give you great returns, their proportion has reduced. Which means that the overall configuration of your mutual fund has now changed. It is not the same configuration that you invested in 6 months back. Right now, it's become more equity. So now, do you still want that fund? Because this is not what you bought. So somebody's got to keep managing it. Someone's got to keep an active eye and say, okay, this is going wrong, change it, sell this, buy this, keep it balanced, stay on focus, stay on track. Or some global equity company is taken off. So suddenly you have a spike there, which again changes the proportion. It also changes the risk factor in that fund. So someone's sitting there and managing it for you. There's a team doing it all the time. And that's a qualified team. That's a licensed team. They know what they're doing. So yes, they do charge you a management expense ratio. And the debate continues saying, why? And then suddenly coronavirus hits. And then no one asks why again, because all the index funds have gone like that. And the balanced funds, the ones that were charging an MER, have balanced out. Of course, they dipped down, but now they've started balancing, and you're much safer with that. So I would say, sorry, I would say first few years, go with a qualified advisor, listen to them, they'll keep you safe. They'll make sure you're growing, but they'll do it safely. From them, spend more time, ask a million more questions, learn, actively participate with them, then practice on your own and then take off.
Correct.
That would make sense. I have some clients who are, of course, online right now with us on the call, who would just say, "When whatever you say is good enough, do it." So yeah, of course, that's beautiful. It's so nice of you to do that. But it'll be more fun if you also know what we are doing. And tomorrow you call me and say, hey, why are we not recommending this? Or I read this in the paper. Why haven't we invested in that? Let's buy that. So you help me. Let's become partners in your success. That way a person also grows, and then it's more fun even for me, because even I'm enjoying the bouncing of ideas.
That's really nice. Yeah. Thank you so much for all the input.
My pleasure. All right, guys, let's wrap this up. Thank you so much. It's been so much fun. And stay in touch. Please email me anytime. My email ID you already have in the forward. It's kimaya1@gmail.com. Stay in touch, guys. Have a great
Vinodji, can you give your email ID again? I won't have it.
Yeah, it is KI. That's K for
sorry.
KI.
Yeah.
Double M. That's Michael. Double M.
Okay. Okay.
AYA.
AYA. Okay.
No. AYA.
All right.
1. Number 1.
Okay.
At gmail.com. So that's kimaya1@gmail.com.
All right.
Take care, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Take care and be safe.
Thank you so much. Very nice. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks a lot.
Okay. See you guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Vinodji. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank
Have
you.
a nice day.
Excellent, sir. Thanks a lot, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.